Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
Hey there guys, Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well, and welcome to our Andor Episode 10 review. The big Star Wars twist we've all been looking forward to here in this show here. Let's go ahead, we're going to hop right into it. It should go without saying that there are spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen any of the Andor episodes, what are you doing? Go watch them right now. They're absolutely amazing. Let's go ahead and we're going to jump into this review/breakdown video. In this video, we're going to be taking a read from denofgeek.com, who I'll have linked in the description down below. As I read, Andor finally reveals a secret hiding in plain sight, but are we headed for a big season finale cliffhanger? Episode 10 regarding their overall review/breakdown/recap of everything that you might have missed throughout this episode here as well. Out of complimentary Star Wars TV shows, Andor may end up being the most interesting rewatch. Of course, while the thrills and the surprises in The Mandalorian are top-notch, those big moments like Luke Skywalker going to town in the rescue on those dark troopers don't really make you feel like going back and watching previous episodes for more context. However, Andor is the exact opposite. With episode 10, Andor has delivered a massive twist, but this surprise won't be the thing that you'll want to rewatch. Instead, it will be everything leading up to it, those events. Andor is a show about spies, and that means with a twist like this, everything you've already watched has suddenly changed. The episode titled One Way Out will likely be remembered as one of where Cassian finally breaks out of the Imperial prison, but the bigger twist of it all is about a rebel spy we didn't know even existed. While many fans had speculated that Dead Romero was actually an undercover rebel, it turns out that a pseudo background character, fellow ISB supervisor Lonnie, is really the mole working for Luthen. It's the kind of reveal that feels realistic because of course a rebel spy would be the one person hanging around with the ISB who we've totally ignored this entirety of this time. It's something that would be expected, but it still at the same time comes as a surprise. As this tradition for a good spy stories, Lonnie's situation is honestly tragic. Even though he wants to get out, Luthen refuses to let him go. This climatic scene in this episode is also a bit meta. Luthen suggests that he and Lonnie are serving a higher cause, which the audience knows is a reference to the films of the original trilogy. Essentially, Lonnie and Luthen are toiling in the darkness so that later Luke and Wedge and Han Solo can finally fly some X-Wings in an open attack against the Death Star. By the time of Rogue One, Cassian Andor wears a rebel uniform on Yavin 4, but at this point in the Star Wars timeline, 5 years earlier, that idea feels impossible. As Andor heads toward the end of its first season, it seems that the blurry picture of the rebellion is starting to come into focus. The other part of this puzzle is naturally the journey of Andor himself. The thrilling revolt in the prison of Nakarina 5 features a stunning performance by Andy Serkis as a tragic shift leader Kino Loy, who we learned can't even swim. An excellent twist that will leave you heartbroken and wondering whether we'll ever find out what happened to him, and assuming nothing good at that there as well. However, this is something I would like to talk about in a separate future video here on the channel, diving deeper on into this. I definitely think that Andy Serkis's character, Kino Loy, is still out there, and I even think that he broke out of this prison as well at the same time. He just didn't have the courage at that moment to go ahead and jump off, and rather much probably did it like 2 minutes later, honestly, but still got separated. Forced to move on without poor Kino, the episode concludes with both Cassian and Melshi on their own. Fans of Rogue One will recall Melshi and Cassian as allies who actually worked together for the Alliance as well on the Battle of Scarif. So again, we're seeing the birth of future Star Wars stories, just not in the way that we necessarily really expected. All of this begs for a larger question though at the same time. While it will be fascinating to rewatch all of Andor Season 1, knowing what we now know about all the different twists and turns, it remains to be seen if all of this will close on a satisfactory note, at least for Season 1. Season 2 is something that is confirmed, and that we will be hearing more about here in the coming weeks, as its production is going to begin here in just a couple of weeks. Andor has succeeded in making its myriad stories about more than just canon dot connecting in the Star Wars timeline. And no offense to other shows, but that's kind of the purpose of Obi-Wan Kenobi or the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. This means it has its own internal emotional stakes, which are not beholden to the rest of Star Wars. But with only 2 episodes left, it's not clear how many of those threads can truly be resolved or changed enough to feel like we've reached a good stopping point before Season 2. Maybe that's not the point, but there does seem to be a basic question about how much time is spent on each mini-story arc throughout this show. Cassian was in Nakari 5 prison for 3 episodes, which he'll only be free for 2 more episodes before Season 1 comes to a close. So it's kind of a close call on what will he be doing by the end of the season, and for what it does to set up the next season, Season 2 of this show. Will there be a potential time jump to get him to the next point in his story? Possibly. We've only known Lonnie was a spy for 1 episode at this point, but now this revelation seems essential to whatever table setting is happening for the finale episodes. If the overall show is biding its time to get to the main event, that moment seems to have arrived. Did the show linger on certain ideals and ideas and plots for too long before pushing things forward? We'll certainly know in just 2 weeks' time for the finale. Fortunately, the stakes are clearer now than they've been since the start, however. But with most characters still separated from each other, it'll only be fascinating to see how this will ultimately see everything comes together. If the series has taught us one thing, it's that nothing is what it really does seem. And from there, that is where the article concludes, and as I had mentioned at the beginning of this video, I have this full article linked in the description down below for you guys to check out there as well. This, honestly, overall episode has to do with a lot of different curves and curveballs and twists here, so to speak here, and also setting everything up for the finale here at the same time is kind of blind-eyed. I think episode 11 will do everything with setting up stuff to see here in the finale, also while acting as one of those finale episodes. We're now done with those 3 episode arcs that the entirety of the show has been doing, except for episode 7, kind of its own spin-off type of thing that was left alone. It wasn't part of the Ferrex or Aldani or the prison or anything like that. It was just kind of its own thing, and same thing can be applied here for episode 11 and 12. They're not necessarily 3 episode arcs because there's only 2 of them, but they're still going to be considered finale episodes. What I'm saying essentially is that I think episode 11 will do a lot more with setting up what we're going to be seeing in episode 12. I don't really necessarily see all that much of a time jump in the regards of a couple of weeks, months, or anything like that. Most, maybe a couple of hours. I briefly also touched on the whole idea of Andy Serkis's character Kino Loy still being out there, still being alive, and that he did actually probably jump off and just didn't have the courage at the time to do so, but probably like just held on to somebody as they swam to land type of thing. I think is very honestly a good idea to throw out there. It's something I'll dive deeper on into in a separate future video here on the channel, so hit the subscribe button and join us here today. We cover all of that, and we'll also be covering all types of other Star Wars related news, leaks, rumors, theories, and breakdowns here on the channel as well. So if you guys are into any of that, you guys have found the right place. Join us here today. And of course, I'd also love to hear what you guys all think in the comments down below on this overall episode here as well. I'm absolutely more than hyped over the entirety of the prison break and everything that was going on with that. As I had mentioned and gone over in our reaction video here on the channel, I was just bouncing out of my chair. I wasn't at the edge of my chair or anything like that. I was just bouncing out of it. I was going crazy. It was amazing. I loved everything about this episode. So let me know what you loved about this episode or didn't love so much, and what your overall thoughts and opinions about this show here are as a whole, and what you want to see here in the finale episodes. I'd love to hear what you guys all think in the comments down below. Of course, this has been Unofficial Star Wars. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Of course, I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, may the Force be with you. Have a great one, guys. Peace out.